Chapter 1. The Quiet Beginnings in Milford. I was born in Milford, a small industrial town in Ohio, back in 1925. Life was simple then, or at least it seemed that way to a kid like me. My name is Eleanor Hayes, and I grew up in a modest house on Elm Street, where the factories hummed day and night, spitting out smoke that painted the sky gray. My father worked at the steel mill, coming home with calloused hands and a weary smile, while my mother tended to the garden and kept our home spotless. We weren't rich, but we had enough to dream a little. Milford wasn't much to look at. Rows of brick houses lined the streets, interrupted by the occasional corner store or church. The Ohio River ran nearby, its waters murky from the runoff, but it was our playground in the summers. I'd spend hours with my brother, Tommy, skipping stones and chasing fireflies. Tommy was 2 years older, always the protector, always the one with big ideas. He dreamed of leaving Milford one day, heading to the big cities like Cleveland or even New York. I admired him for that, though I was content with our little world. That it was in 1935, when I was 10, that I first noticed something off about our neighbor, Mr. Harlan Graves. He lived alone in the house next door, a tall, gaunt man with hollow cheeks and eyes that seemed to sink into his skull. He worked odd jobs, mostly as a handyman, fixing roofs and painting fences. People said he was a veteran from the Great War, scarred in ways you couldn't see. He kept to himself, but sometimes I'd catch him watching us from his porch, his gaze lingering a bit too long on Tommy and me as we played point one afternoon. While I was helping Mother hang laundry, Mr. Graves shuffled over with a basket of apples from his tree. "For the kids," he said in that raspy voice of his, handing them over with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mother thanked him politely, but later that evening, she tossed the apples out, muttering about how they looked bruised. Tommy laughed it off, but I remember feeling a chill, like someone walking over my grave. Little did I know, that was just the start of something darker weaving its way into our lives. As the years ticked by, the Depression hit Milford hard. Factories slowed, jobs vanished, and families scraped by. But through it all, Mr. Graves remained a constant fixture, always there on the edges of our days. He'd wave when we passed, offer help with chores, but there was an undercurrent, a sense of unease that I couldn't shake. Tommy started calling him Old Hollow Eyes, and we'd giggle about it in whispers. If only we'd known how those eyes would haunt us. Chapter 2. Shadows in the Alley. By 1940, I was 15, and the world was changing fast. War loomed overseas, and Milford buzzed with talk of enlistment and rations. Tommy, now 17, worked part-time at the mill alongside father, saving every penny for his escape. I attended the local high school, where I made friends with girls like Betty Lou and Sarah, dreaming of dances and first loves. One evening in late spring, as the sun dipped low, I was walking home from Betty's house. The streets were quiet, the air thick with the scent of blooming lilacs. I took a shortcut through the alley behind Main Street, a narrow path flanked by wooden fences and overflowing trash bins. That's when I heard footsteps behind me, soft, deliberate, matching my pace. That I quickened my step, heart pounding, but the footsteps followed. Glancing over my shoulder, I saw a shadow detach from the wall, a figure in a long coat. Panic surged, and I broke into a run, bursting out onto Elm Street just as Tommy appeared from our house. "Ellie? What's wrong?" he asked, pulling me inside. That I told him about the shadow, but he brushed it off as my imagination, maybe a stray dog or a neighbor. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard a faint scratching at the window. Peeking through the curtains, I saw nothing but darkness. The next day, Mother found a small carving on our fence, a crude eye, etched into the wood. We blamed kids, but deep down, I wondered if it was Mr. Graves. He'd been seen wandering the alleys at odd hours, muttering to himself. That as summer unfolded, more strange things happened. Letters arrived with no stamps, addressed to me in shaky handwriting, filled with nonsense about watching over the pure. Father burned them without a word. Tommy started walking me everywhere, his protective instincts kicking in. Milford felt smaller, more confining, like the factory's smoke was closing in. And through it all, Mr. Graves watched from his porch, his hollow eyes following us like ghosts. Chapter 3. Whispers of War. 1942 brought the war to our doorstep. Tommy enlisted in the army, shipping off to basic training with promises to write. I was 17, working as a clerk at the general store to help the family. Father aged overnight, his cough worsening from the mill dust, and mother fretted constantly that Amar. Graves became more reclusive, but his presence lingered. I'd catch glimpses of him in the store, buying canned goods and staring at the shelves as if lost in thought. One day, he approached me at the counter. "You're growing up fine, Eleanor," he said, his voice like gravel. "Just like your mother." His hand brushed mine as he paid, and I recoiled, feeling a slimy chill. That night, a storm raged, thunder shaking the house. I woke to a tapping at my window, heart racing. I crept over and saw a face pressed against the glass, pale, with hollow eyes. I screamed, and Father burst in, shotgun in hand. But when we looked outside, there was nothing but rain-slicked grass and a single footprint in the mud. The police dismissed it as a prank, but rumors swirled in Milford. Old-timers spoke of Graves' war days, how he'd come back changed, whispering about lost comrades and unseen enemies. Tommy's letters arrived sporadically, full of bravado, but I sensed his fear. As the war dragged on, so did the unease in our town, a shadow that seemed to emanate from the house next door. Chapter 4. The Unseen Watcher. By 1945, the war ended, but Tommy didn't return whole. He came back with a limp and nightmares that woke the house. I was 20, engaged to a local boy named Jack, who worked at the mill. Life tried to normalize, but Mr. Graves grew bolder. He started leaving gifts on our porch, wilted flowers, tarnished trinkets. Once, a doll with eyes gouged out. Mother wanted to move, but Father refused, tied to his job. Tommy confronted Graves one afternoon, storming over and demanding he stop. "You're scaring my sister," he growled. Graves just smiled, that empty grin. "I'm protecting her from the darkness," he murmured. Tommy shoved him, and Graves stumbled back, laughing softly. That night, our dog went missing. We found him days later, throat slit, in the alley. The police questioned Graves, but he had an alibi, working late. Whispers turned to accusations, but nothing stuck. I started seeing shadows everywhere, feeling eyes on me at work, on walks. Jack promised to protect me, but even he seemed uneasy. Milford's factories churned on, oblivious, while our family unraveled thread by thread. Chapter 5. Fractured Bonds. 1950 marked a turning point. I married Jack in a small ceremony, moving to a house on Oak Street, away from Elm. Tommy took a job in Cleveland, visiting sporadically. Father retired, his health failing, and Mother cared for him tirelessly, but distance didn't end it. Letters arrived at our new home, and signed, describing my daily routines in detail. "You look lovely in blue," one said. Jack reported them, but the police shrugged. Harmless admirer, perhaps. Then, one evening, as Jack worked late, I heard footsteps on the porch. Peering out, I saw Graves standing there, hat in hand. "Eleanor," he called softly, "I need to talk to you." I locked the doors, heart hammering, and called the neighbors. He vanished before help arrived, but left a note. "The war never ends. I see the enemies." Paranoia gripped me. Tommy returned for a visit, furious, vowing to end it. We confronted Graves together, but he denied everything, his eyes gleaming with madness. As the decade dawned, Milford boomed with post-war growth, but our lives darkened. Father's cough turned to cancer, and he passed quietly. At the funeral, I spotted Graves in the back, watching. The bonds of family strained, secrets bubbling beneath the surface. Chapter 6. Descent into Madness. In 1960, with 2 children of my own, Little Mary and Ben. Life should have been joyful. Jack advanced at the mill, and we had a comfortable home. But the harassment escalated. Phone calls at midnight, heavy breathing on the line, shadows in the yard at dusk. Tommy, now married with kids in Cleveland, suggested I hire a private investigator. The man dug into Graves' past. Born in 1890, served in France, returned shell-shocked. Rumors of a lost love, a woman who resembled my mother. He's fixated, the investigator said. Dangerous. One night, Mary woke screaming about a man at her window. We found footprints and a carving on the sill, and Jack bought a gun, patrolling the house. I barely slept, jumping at every noise. Graves was arrested for trespassing elsewhere, but released. He confronted me at the store. You don't understand. I'm saving you. His grip on my arm bruised. Tommy drove down, and they fought in the street, blood drawn. The town whispered, dividing. Some pitted Graves. Others feared him as the 60s unfolded. Civil rights marches passed through Milford, but our personal war raged. Madness crept in, eroding trust, turning neighbors suspicious. Chapter 7. The Breaking Point. 1975 brought crisis. My children were teens, rebellious, unaware of the full history. Jack's health faltered, heart issues from stress. Tommy visited less, burdened by his own life. Graves, now in his 80s, looked frilier but no less menacing. Incidents intensified, slashed tires, broken windows. One evening, Ben came home beaten, claiming an old man attacked him in the alley, ranting about purity. We pressed charges, but Graves claimed senility. In court, he stared at me, mouthing words I couldn't hear. Acquitted on lack of evidence. Then, tragedy struck. Jack suffered a heart attack driving home, crashing into a tree. He didn't survive. At the hospital, a nurse mentioned seeing an old man nearby earlier. Grief consumed me, suspicion turning to certainty. Tommy returned, vowing vengeance. We searched Graves' house while he was out, found photos of me through the years, clippings, a shrine. Horrified, we called the police, but Graves vanished before they arrived. The breaking point shattered us, Milford's facade cracking under the weight of hidden horrors. Chapter 8. Pursuit and Revelation. 1985, a decade of excess. But for me, isolation. Children grown and gone. Married to college in New York, Ben to the military. Tommy distant, our bond frayed. Graves resurfaced in letters from afar, postmarked from various states. I'm always watching, they said. I hired another investigator, tracing him to a rundown motel in Indiana. Tommy and I drove there, confronting him in his room. He sat calmly, surrounded by war memorabilia. It started in the trenches, he confessed. Your mother, she reminded me of her. I had to protect. Revelation poured out. Obsession born of trauma, escalating over decades. He admitted the dog, the shadows, but denied Jack's death. Accidents happen, he smirked. Tommy lunged, but I stopped him. We left, reporting to authorities, but Graves slipped away again. Pursuit became obsession, mirroring his madness. Milford faded in the rear view, but the past clung like smoke. Chapter 9. The final confrontation. By 1995, I was 70, living alone in a quiet suburb outside Milford. Children visited, grandchildren brought joy, but nightmares persisted. Tommy passed from cancer, echoing father's fate. Graves, ancient now, returned to Milford, holed up in his old house. Letters resumed, more delusional. The end is near, one warned. Determined to end it, I went back, armed with resolve. Sneaking in at night, I found him in the attic, surrounded by my life's artifacts. Eleanor, he wheezed. You've come home. Confrontation erupted, words of pain, accusations. He lunged weakly, but I pushed him back. In the struggle, he fell down the stairs, neck snapping. Panic seized me. I fled, but guilt gnawed. Police ruled it accidental, an old man's fall. But I knew the truth, my hands, stained by necessity. Chapter 10, Echoes of the Past. 2000 dawned, the new millennium. I was 75, reflecting on a life marred by shadows. Milford had changed, factories closed, town gentrified. Graves' house demolished, but memories lingered that my family knew pieces, but not all. I wrote this down, a testament to the darkness that can hide in plain sight. From quiet beginnings to tragic end, the trajectory of obsession destroyed lives that in quiet moments. I still feel watched, but now it's just echoes. To Harlan Graves, wherever your soul rests, let's never meet again. Conclusion: the year 2000 felt like a strange milestone, a line drawn between the past I'd lived and a future I wasn't sure I'd see. I was 75 years old, sitting in my small house on the outskirts of Milford, Ohio, where the world seemed to have moved on without me. The factories that once defined this town were mostly shuttered now, their smokestacks silent, replaced by strip malls and chain restaurants that felt alien to the Elm Street of my childhood. The Ohio River still flowed, murky as ever, but the kids didn't play along its banks anymore. Progress, they called it. To me, it felt like erasure. I'd spent decades carrying the weight of Harlan Graves' shadow, his hollow eyes etched into my memory like the crude carvings he left on fences and windowsills. His death 5 years ago, in that attic surrounded by relics of my life, should have been the end. The police called it an accident, an old man's fall down a rotting staircase. I let them believe it, but the truth was heavier. My hands had pushed him, not with malice, but with a desperate need to end the nightmare that had haunted me since I was a girl. I didn't regret it, not exactly, but guilt has a way of lingering, like smoke you can't scrub from your clothes. Sitting at my kitchen table, a cup of tea gone cold, I tried to make sense of it all. The millennium had arrived with fanfare, talk of computers crashing, the world resetting. But for me, it was just another year of wrestling with ghosts. My children, Mary and Ben, were grown, with lives of their own. Mary taught literature at a college in New York, married to a kind man who sent me Christmas cards. Ben was still in the military, stationed overseas, his letters sparse but warm. My grandchildren, 3 of them now, brought light to my days, their laughter a reminder that life could still be innocent. But I hadn't told them the full story of Harlan Graves. I hadn't told anyone, not really. Tommy, my brother, took his piece of it to the grave when cancer claimed him in 1993. My husband, Jack, was gone too, his heart giving out in that crash I still believed Graves had a hand in. The weight of it all was mine alone. I started writing it down, this story of mine, not for fame or catharsis, but because I needed to pin it to the page, to make it real. The letters, the carvings, the shadows in the alleys, they'd blurred over time, like a photograph left in the sun. Writing brought them back, sharp and vivid, and with them came questions I'd avoided for years. Why me? Why had Graves fixated on our family, on my mother, on me? Was it just the madness of a war-torn mind, or was there something deeper, something I'd missed in the haze of survival? Milford had changed, but its bones remained. I drove into town one crisp autumn morning, the leaves turning red and gold, to see what was left of Elm Street. The house I grew up in still stood, though the paint was peeling and a young family lived there now. I parked across the street, watching their kids chase each other in the yard, and for a moment, I was 10 again, skipping stones with Tommy. Next door, where Graves' house once loomed, was an empty lot, overgrown with weeds. They'd torn it down after his death, citing structural issues, but I knew the truth. No one wanted to live in a place stained by his presence. That I got out of the car, my joints creaking, and walked to the lot. The air felt heavy, like it held memories the bulldozers couldn't erase. I half expected to see him there, standing among the dandelions, his hollow eyes fixed on me. But there was nothing, just the wind rustling the grass. I knelt, touching the earth where his porch had been, and found a small stone, smooth and cold. On it, faint but unmistakable, was the outline of an eye, etched with a knife. My breath caught. Had it been there all along, buried under the rubble? Or had someone, something, left it for me to find? Back home, I placed the stone on my mantel, next to a photo of Tommy and me from 1935, smiling in our Sunday best. It wasn't a trophy, not exactly, but a reminder that the past wasn't done with me yet. I started digging through old boxes, pulling out letters, newspaper clippings, anything that might explain Graves. Most of his things had been cleared out after his death, donated or burned, but I kept a few items from that night in the attic. A faded journal, a handful of photographs, a rusted dog tag from the Great War. The journal was the hardest to read. His handwriting was jagged, the words spilling over each other like a fevered confession. Pages detailed his time in France, the trenches, the screams of men he couldn't save. He wrote of a woman named Clara, a nurse he'd loved, who died in a shelling. She had auburn hair, like my mother's, and a smile that kept the darkness at bay. After her death, he wrote of enemies everywhere, of a mission to protect the pure from a world gone mad. My name appeared in later entries, alongside my mother's, scrawled with a trembling hand. Eleanor, the light, he called me. Must keep her safe. It was chilling, but it gave context. His obsession wasn't random. It was born in the chaos of war, twisted by loss into something monstrous. My mother, with her auburn hair and gentle demeanor, must have triggered memories of Clara. And me? I was the continuation, the child he saw as untainted, a vessel for his delusions of salvation. It didn't excuse what he'd done, the stalking, the threats, the death of our dog, the shadow over Jack's crash, but it made it less incomprehensible. He wasn't a monster in the way storybooks paint them. He was a man broken by horrors, who broke others in turn that I called Mary that evening, needing to share something, even if not the whole truth. She listened patiently as I talked about Milford, about growing up, about Tommy. I mentioned Graves in passing, testing the waters, but she sensed the weight in my voice. "Mom, you sound like you're carrying something heavy," she said. "What happened back then?" I deflected, promising to tell her someday, but the call left me restless. I couldn't keep this buried forever. My grandchildren deserved to know their history, even the ugly parts.